Ladies and gentlemen, we are compelled to cast a discerning eye upon the enduring saga within the landscape of women's professional basketball, a narrative that for years has been artfully crafted by certain segments of the media, presenting a compelling tableau of unprecedented growth and burgeoning interest. Yet, today, we peel back these layers of carefully curated perception to reveal a stark, unvarnished truth that has been whispered, indeed, shouted from certain corners for an extended period. The purported widespread appeal of this particular athletic endeavor, affectionately dubbed pretend basketball by some, remains for many a phantom. We have been witness, through the relentless cadence of various media outlets, to a consistent, almost fervent proclamation. These athletes, undeniably elite in their physical prowess and dedication, represent the pinnacle of global basketball excellence. The enthusiastic exhortations of "Woohoo! Yes, yes, yes!" have echoed, intended to sway public sentiment. However, the data, the raw empirical truth, tells a vastly different tale. The narrative of burgeoning popularity, often presented as an undeniable upward trajectory, is, upon closer inspection, little more than an elaborate illusion. It is a statistical sleight of hand, where growth is easily demonstrated when the starting point is, to put it charitably, negligible. One can indeed show an increase when moving from an almost imperceptible baseline to a slightly less imperceptible one, yet this does not equate to genuine, market-driven engagement. The public, it appears, was simply not tuning in. The consumer was not compelled to part with their hard-earned currency, say $10, to witness what some might describe as a sedative experience. Watching, for example, the Chicago Bravado's ill-fated airballed layups against the largely anonymous ensemble of the Las Vegas Faces, contrary to the pervasive and insistent pronouncements emanating from mainstream platforms, the notion that certain figures are undeniable magnets for viewership simply does not withstand scrutiny. The highly publicized presence of an Angel Reese, or indeed an Aja Wilson, despite her true name being Asia, has demonstrably failed to translate into the broad, compelling viewership numbers that signal true market draw. One name and one name alone has emerged as a singular, undeniable commercial force within the presently beleaguered ecosystem of women's basketball: Caitlin Clark. When her unique talent is not gracing the hardwood, the eyes of the public quite simply turn away. This fundamental truth extends its sobering implications far beyond the established WNBA, seeping into the nascent and ambitious ventures that attempt to carve out their own space in this challenging market. Consider Unrivaled, a startup league conceived, we are told, with the best of intentions, yet one where a consortium of sympathetic, perhaps overly optimistic investors has poured untold millions into a product that, by all objective measures, the market has not, and quite frankly, is not, clamoring for. Indeed, we ourselves articulated this very sentiment at Unrivaled's inception. This secondary offering, this dump, as it were, was, in our estimation, irrevocably destined for an utterly colossal and embarrassing failure. Let it be stated unequivocally, we possess no clairvoyant abilities. We are not akin to Miss Cleo, nor do we claim any inherent expertise in the intricate, often perplexing economics of women's professional basketball. And frankly, it appears that few others in positions of influence or investment can lay claim to such expertise either, given their demonstrable inability to effectively monetize what many now perceive as a financial quagmire. The foundational principles of any successful enterprise are immutable. One must either identify and fulfill a specific unmet need within the market, or one must take an already established product and transform it, rendering it unequivocally superior or uniquely different. Unrivaled by its very existence and its subsequent performance, has failed on both counts. There is no discernible widespread demand for an increase in women's basketball offerings. In fact, a dispassionate examination of the rating figures, those unimpeachable indicators of audience preference, strongly suggests that the market is expressing a clear collective desire for less women's basketball. Now, let us delve into a particular theory, a compelling piece of speculation that seeks to illuminate the motivations behind Unrivaled's emergence. While some would assert, perhaps with a touch of idealistic fervor, that figures such as Nneka Ogwumike, referred to as Enficia Collier in the original script, and Brianna Stewart initiated Unrivaled with the noble aim of ensuring these elite athletes received their justly deserved compensation, a more pragmatic, perhaps cynical interpretation suggests a different strategic objective. It is our considered opinion that Unrivaled was, in part, conceived as a tactical maneuver, a vehicle designed to furnish WNBA players with a potent form of leverage in their ongoing collective bargaining negotiations. The current comfort level in threatening strikes, the emboldened posture in presenting what many view as fundamentally unreasonable demands, stems, one might argue, from the perceived security of Unrivaled as a viable contingency plan. The players, it is suggested, believe Unrivaled stands ready to vastly overpay them, providing a cushioned alternative to the traditional league structure. However, a singular inconvenient truth casts a long shadow over this strategic calculus, a minuscule yet critical flaw in an otherwise audacious plan. For Unrivaled to effectively serve as a source of leverage, it must, by definition, achieve a measure of success. To borrow a phrase from Nneka Ogwumike herself, Unrivaled is tasked with the unenviable burden of proving its sustainability as a legitimate business enterprise. And here, regrettably, the nascent league falters dramatically. For these particular athletes, whom some now characterize as overpaid unknowns, the only discernible sustainability Unrivaled currently demonstrates is a perpetuation of gargantuan, embarrassing failure. Before we delve further into the complex financial realities shaping these leagues, allow me a brief personal digression, a moment to address a matter of genuine human concern. Many of you, our dedicated audience, have reached out, and for that, we extend our sincerest gratitude, inquiring about Chewy, my eldest Yorkie, the darker-haired companion often seen nestled contentedly in my recliner. We were, thankfully, able to bring her home yesterday morning. She remains heavily medicated, a testament to the ongoing medical challenges she faces. Our specialists at Auburn, a facility widely regarded as one of the premier veterinary institutions in the nation, are diligently formulating a treatment plan. The preliminary diagnosis points towards mouth cancer on her tongue, a definitive confirmation of which is anticipated next week. The glimmer of good news resides in its potential treatability. However, the less than ideal nature of the prospective treatment options is deeply concerning. The most straightforward path to eradicate the cancer involves the radical removal of her tongue. The prospect of subjecting her to such a brutal recovery, with the harrowing necessity of tube feeding, weighs heavily on us. At this juncture, our most fervent hope is that the ailment proves to be a mere infection. As previously stated, clarity awaits us next week. Should my presence on screen or the regularity of our broadcasts falter in the interim, please understand that my focus remains on her care. We humbly request that you keep Chewy in your thoughts and prayers. Returning to the broader landscape of professional basketball, a revealing demonstration unfolded throughout Monday, extending into the coveted primetime viewing window as TNT, a prominent broadcaster, presented what many characterized as an unwelcome, unexciting, and ultimately unwanted iteration of pretend basketball. The statistics underpinning this observation are particularly stark. Last year, the inaugural night of Unrivaled garnered a reported 313,000 viewers. While not a monumental figure, it was deemed respectable for a league in its infancy. Yet, when juxtaposed with the viewership figures recorded on Monday night, that 313,000 now appears as a distant dream. A microscopic droplet of water in the parched expanse of a desert after a week of relentless sun. Season 2 of Unrivaled, on its opening night, could only manage to attract a paltry 107,000 viewers on TNT. This represents an astonishing 65% decline from its previous year's debut. And to compound this already concerning situation, we find ourselves revisiting a point we underscored last summer. The assertion that Paige Bueckers, despite her undeniable talent and collegiate renown, does not, in fact, command significant viewership as a professional draw. While some are quick to counter, proclaiming her a huge star, the financial realities present a far more complex picture. Paige Bueckers, we understand, is among the most highly compensated, or perhaps more accurately, the most overpaid athletes within Unrivaled. Yet the league's investment of $348,000 in her compensation has, at its current return, only managed to generate a meager 107,000 viewers. From a purely business perspective, it becomes abundantly clear why, as the saying goes, that dog simply won't hunt. There is an undeniable chasm between her compensation and her quantifiable drawing power. This precipitous decline in viewership, these atrocious rating figures, carry a significant and detrimental side effect. They fundamentally erode the leverage available to WNBA players in the ongoing and increasingly contentious negotiations for a new collective bargaining agreement. The established deadline for reaching such an agreement looms. Indeed, it is upon us today. It is patently obvious that this deadline will not be met. Yet for the dwindling numbers who passionately follow pretend basketball, a curious silver lining emerges. There remains a tangible possibility that the 2026 WNBA season will not be consigned to cancellation. This raises an immediate and critical question, one that astute observers would naturally pose. How precisely is a season to proceed in the absence of a collectively bargained agreement? How can players take the court without an agreed-upon framework for salaries, for fundamental compensation? According to reporting from ESPN, the WNBA, in concert with its players, whom some characterize as incredibly entitled, have conceived a potential resolution. The 2026 season may remarkably unfold under the auspices of the existing or even the outdated collective bargaining agreement. Let us pause for a moment of critical reflection. Correct me if my understanding is flawed, but for a period spanning several months, WNBA players have publicly articulated a resolute stance, proclaiming their unwavering commitment to standing firm, to fighting for their right to be overpaid, to securing compensation for which they argue there is no way of earning. Indeed, as the festive season of Christmas approached, these players were issuing explicit threats of strike action. How then have we navigated the journey from such a position of proclaimed false bravado to a situation where WNBA players now appear to be essentially begging to be paid in Ethiopian breadcrumbs, where lucky players will be compensated in pesos? The rhetorical shift from demanding millions to a willingness to work for breadcrumbs is nothing short of breathtaking. This is admittedly pure speculation on our part, but a compelling inference can be drawn. WNBA players are, with an increasing sense of urgency, coming to grips with the stark reality of their minimal leverage. They are, it would appear, recognizing that their primary financial benefactor, the National Basketball Association, does not, in fact, need the WNBA for its own operational or financial success. To the NBA's credit, it has diligently pursued a resolution presenting a substantial offer, 50% of net revenue. That is, the revenue remaining after all operational expenses have been meticulously accounted for. This, on its face, sounds inherently equitable, does it not? Yet the WNBA players have countered with a demand for 30% of gross revenue, which represents the totality of income generated before any expenses are deducted. It is a mathematical certainty that the WNBA as an organization will never acquiesce to such terms. Owners, already navigating a landscape often devoid of profit, are unequivocally disinclined to perpetuate, let alone exacerbate, financial losses while simultaneously committing to millions in player salaries. The longer this impasse persists, the more decisively WNBA players continue to hemorrhage their already tenuous leverage. Indeed, a decision to proceed under the terms of the old collective bargaining agreement would directly translate into millions of dollars foregone by these very players. Consider the profound irony. The league is, in fact, offering them multi-million-dollar contracts, precisely the quantum of compensation they initially sought. Yet, a perceived obstinacy, a deep-seated sense of entitlement, appears to compel them to cling to a stance that would see them continue to play for what amounts to pesos, all in the service of upholding their perceived beliefs. One must, however, confront the cold, hard pragmatism of the modern world. Last we checked, the power utility companies do not accept beliefs as a valid form of payment. Nor, for that matter, has personal hunger ever been satiated through the mere consumption of abstract convictions. There is a singular, undeniable reason why WNBA players exhibit such a profound reluctance to be compensated based on net revenue. For the entirety of this league's three-decade existence, its net revenue has consistently resided in the negative, signifying a perennial state of financial loss. WNBA players, it seems, aspire to guaranteed millions, yet they seemingly lack the requisite self-belief, or perhaps the strategic vision, to actively generate or earn those millions through the very success of the league they inhabit. Should the 2026 season indeed unfold under the strictures of the old collective bargaining agreement, the potential for catastrophic disruption is alarmingly high. Players could, without warning or notice, initiate a strike at any given moment. In such a scenario, the league itself would possess virtually no compelling incentive to expedite a new agreement beyond the perhaps superficial desire to prevent the protracted negotiations from further tarnishing the season. But at this juncture, one might cynically ask, who truly cares? The inherent quality of the on-court product, already often described as substandard, has for many already cast a long and undeniable shadow over this burgeoning stump of a league. The more pronounced unrivaled struggles become, the greater the negotiating leverage accrues to the WNBA. If there is one singular asset the WNBA possesses that its startup counterparts conspicuously lack, it is the enduring quality of longevity. For reasons that remain, to many, profoundly inexplicable, the NBA, its powerful parent organization, has consistently opted to keep this financial turd afloat. And regardless of the public pronouncements from figures like Nneka Ogwumike, Unrivaled is, by all observable metrics, hurtling towards inevitable extinction. A media giant like TNT cannot and will not indefinitely funnel millions of dollars into a league that demonstrates such a glaring inability to draw flies to a fresh turd. While the prospect of Project B looms as an unknown commodity, it may succeed, it may not. The only existing entity with an established foundation remains the WNBA. This, ironically, is precisely why players are so vigorously advocating for a greater share of the financial pie. They are acutely aware that the billionaire owners of the NBA possess the deep pockets necessary to satisfy their demands. The fundamental problem, however, lies in the owners' diminishing patience. They are increasingly weary of committing millions of dollars to a league that not only fails to generate a profit, but, as some would argue, primarily generates problems and complaints from its player base. Indeed, their latest proposal, demanding 30% of gross revenue, is a financial blueprint that would foreseeably plunge the league into losses approaching $700 million. This figure, it must be underscored, dramatically eclipses the cumulative financial losses incurred by the WNBA over its entire three-decade history. The ultimate question, then, is laid bare for each of us to consider with sober reflection. Would you agree to such terms? This is not merely an abstract negotiation. It is a profound crossroads for the future of women's professional basketball. The answers to these questions will, without doubt, determine the very trajectory of this enterprise. Let us hear your thoughts in the comments below. We thank you for watching, and we will reconvene for our next discussion. Peace. I'm out. Until next time, ensure you like, comment, and subscribe to our channel.